So can everybody, okay. So like the first question we have from someone who couldn't make it here, is, well, I'll just introduce myself first. I'm Millen. I'm the chair of the First Gen Caucus. Yeah, and I'm excited to be here. Do you wanna introduce yourself?
Sure. Good evening. Thank you for having me here. I am Dr. Anju Singh. I was born and raised in India, went to medical school there, did my residency in ophthalmology, so I'm trained as an eye surgeon. My arranged marriage brought me to the United States of America, where my medical degree is not recognized. And instead of going through the process of getting my medical degree here, I decided to pursue a PhD. So I got a PhD from Penn State, Hershey Medical Center in molecular medicine. I went on to get my master's in health administration, also from Penn State. I am currently teaching as an adjunct faculty at HAC. I teach nursing courses in anatomy and physiology, the preclinical courses. And I am also a small business owner and also a tutor. I do not identify as a politician. I identify as just a common citizen, a single mother, a working person, a taxpayer. And those are the reasons why I got kind of sort of interested or involved in politics, because I thought
Yeah, no, that's great. So our first question from Steven, who couldn't make it here, is yeah. How did you bring your past experience in education and as a small business owner into your like political career? And how does that give you a different perspective?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I have difficulty hearing over my dog barking.
Yeah. Uh, how did your experience like in education and as a small business owner contribute to your political career and like give you a different perspective?
That's a great question. I think the good thing about being involved in politics is that you don't necessarily need to have a specific education or qualification to get involved in politics. A lot of the positions, the bare minimum qualification is you have to be 18 years of age, an American citizen, and not have a criminal record, right? So people from diverse backgrounds and diverse educational backgrounds are able to get involved in politics if they are interested. For me specifically, I think having my medical background has taught me to have empathy for my patients. As a small business owner, it has taught me, customer service. No matter what my personal beliefs or perspective are, to be able to serve your customer is important. And I think bringing that into politics to be able to serve the public is what is important, and which is what has helped me so far.
Yeah, thank you. So similarly, another question was like, how do you think more first generation Americans can get involved in US politics and in general just have their voices be heard?
Another wonderful question. So to be 100% transparent, when I was about your age, I was not at all interested in politics, right? I did not enjoy subjects like civics and learning, all that stuff. I found it quite boring. I would encourage y'all to be interested, because a lot is on the line. Pay attention, because at the end of the day, those decisions influence our life a lot more. Students complain like Pythagorean's theorem does not help us in careers. Learning about civics, learning about the government, learning about politics does help you, right? How you can be involved is number one, just staying informed. What's going on? What kind of bills are on the table? Who's voting on what? Who's voting how? Who's running for elections? Just being informed is a big part of the learning curve. Being a volunteer with candidates, attending the candidate events. There's so many ways you can be involved. Running for office. If as soon as you're 18 years old, if you're a US citizen and don't have a criminal record, you can literally run for office. I've seen freshmen in college run for office. And when I say run for office, as much as you want to run with the intention to win, Sometimes it helps to run for the sake of running because now you are adding competition on the ballot, and competition is healthy. Having candidates run unopposed, I believe, is not healthy. That's not how democracy works. I've had some young people say things like, this is overwhelming, it's too much, I'm just one person, just one vote, I can't make a difference. And that is something I believed for a long time in my life. But let me assure you, that is not necessarily true. There are too many people who think like that. If all of us step up and speak up, we make we become the change. We make the difference. But if you allow people to keep doing the same old thing the same old way, we're never going to change. We're not going to improve, right? Never get discouraged. It's difficult. It's not easy. Don't get discouraged. You don't have to know it all to think you're qualified or not qualified for a position. Stay interested, stay informed, and stay involved.
Yeah, thank you. I think that actually, it's kind of like directly relates to the next question that somebody submitted, which is like how as a candidate do you get young people interested in your candidacy and get young people interested in participating in like political processes in general?
Just like how we're doing it tonight. You all reached out to me, I responded to you. Did you all reach out to my opponent? Have you heard from him?
No.
So I think the answer is in the question. So if you go on the websites where candidates are asked questions, and people can get information about the candidate's stance on different issues, I have answered a lot of those questions that are posted on a lot of the sites. My opponent has not. So just by putting myself out there, a lot of politicians don't like to get involved. um, Let me see my choice of words, be a little more careful. Many politicians will not respond. They are very picky and choosy with whom they respond to and what events they show up for. And one of the big reasons I'm involved is because I am concerned about my children's right. Um, Things like reproductive rights are on the ballot. Things like, giving gender affirming care to the young people is at stake. And these things are important to me personally as a mother. I want my children to have access to safe and legal abortion, God forbid if they ever need it. We are seeing young, healthy women dying in states where there's an absolute abortion ban. I don't want that to happen to my kids. So I got involved in politics, not for me, but more for that my children can have a better future. And I don't think a lot of politicians are thinking that way. So just being engaged and being involved, it's a two-way street. You have to be engaged and involved, and then folks like me take up these opportunities to meet with you and answer your questions.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's definitely very important to have um like youth engagement in politics, and that's a lot of what like this organization is about. Um, okay, so um, we have one more question that was submitted earlier, and that's like even like since you're like not a natural, I mean not like a normal politician, like a normal career politician, that's just trying to like climb up the ladder all the time. How do you build the connections and like with voters and like endorsements and things that are necessary to be successful?
Um, that is an important part. So because I'm not a career politician, so to speak, and I have limited quote unquote resources, including contacts and financial resources, the real the real deal is at the end of the day, money does not vote. The powerful people who are not in my district are not going to be voting. At the end of the day, it is the people in the district that vote, and your vote is your voice. right? So I get involved. First of all, a lot of organizations will reach, the fact that you're a candidate, a lot of these organizations will reach out to you, just like how you guys reached out to me, right? And so my job then becomes is to respond to them, to engage with them, and see what opportunities they're able to provide. So some will just give you an endorsement, some give endorsement with a little donation to help, some will give an endorsement and will put the word out to their contacts and their supporters. And so each endorsement comes with its own little, um, uh, uh, it'll bring something different to the table. Then I attend the party events. I reach out to other candidates. I support other candidates, irrespective of whether I get support back from them or not. Meet with the leaders in the community who help you go knocking on doors and do a literature drop. The high school students reached out to me. I went there and spoke to them at their government body. And so some of them volunteers and they're doing some door knocking. So it's all about just making yourself available and open to communication and responding to people when they reach out to you.
Yeah, that's certainly something that we appreciate. Um, but then also, okay, so then that's like the last question we had that was pre-submitted. If anybody here has any questions, we can transition into that.
I don't know if this has been asked, but I would just like to ask since you are a candidate that's heavily out fundraisered by like your Republican opponent. So what steps have you taken to kind of mitigate their fundraising advantage like, as a smaller scale opponent?
As I mentioned earlier, as important as it is to raise money, because then you can buy ads and print more stuff and distribute more stuff. Let the data speak for itself. In the primary elections, my petitions were challenged and I came 3 good signatures short. So my name was not on the ballot. And I tried in my limited resources to run a write-in campaign, whereas my opponent spent a lot of money and sent out several mailers trying to get us Democrats to write him in on their ballot, right? And I didn't have much funds at the time. I'm a single mom. I worked 3 jobs, so I had limited time to go door knocking. I had not done any fundraisers at that time either. So barely with practically no funds, I got 441 write-ins. He got less than me. So right there tells you that your vote is more powerful than money. As important as money is, at the end of the day, your vote is more powerful. Money does not walk to the polls and money does not vote. At the end of the day, it is people who walk to the polls or mail in their ballots and people vote. So as long as people have the information and you are open to communicating with them, right? I do not hesitate in answering questions directly. I do not hesitate in getting into so-called delicate conversations or even difficult conversations. Talking about abortion is not an easy topic. It's a very touchy-feely topic, and people are very charged and feel very strongly about it. But as a politician or as someone who cares about my own personal health, my children's health, and the health of our community, these are topics we need to talk about. We need to respect other people who may think differently from us, but to talk to them, understand them, respect them, share your perspective with them. That's how you win people over. And so even now, although my opponent has a lot more funds, has all the advantages of incumbency, he has a family member who is who's the mayor of one of the towns in the district. So he's got all of those advantages. Yet since he's had me as an opponent on the ballot in these last few months, he has worked harder than he normally does. He has voted on several bills in a slightly different manner, in a more bipartisan manner than he normally does. His rating with numerous environmental agencies prior to the primaries over the last 8 years that he's been an incumbent His rating with environmental agencies was between 8 and 22%. In the last couple of months, he has increased his rating with one of the agencies by 500%. It is at 67% now. That is work he has done because he has an opponent on the ballot. Work he would not have done had he run unopposed. So again, as important as the raising money is, because that's an important resource, at the end of the day, having a candidate on the ballot who speaks out. I'm running against the advice of a lot of leaderships within the party, and their advice comes based on data, based on numbers, based on past experience. So it's not bad advice. It is good advice. But I believe that we can't change and we can't do better if we keep doing the same old thing. The numbers are based on the past. The experience is based on the past. You look at the numbers, you look at the history, and you say, okay, this is how it's been going. There's a good chance it's going to go that way. But if you don't want it to go that way, then you got to step up and try and push the needle. You may or may not be successful, but you got to step up and try. And that's what I'm doing. I hope that answered your question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Here. Does anybody else have any questions?
So then let me ask you questions since I was asking me questions. Where are you guys based? Where are you, Milan?
I'm like in Maryland, so I'm actually like only an hour or so away from Pennsylvania, so I'm not too far. And also pretty close to DC.
And are you in school or college?
I'm in school,
If I
high
may,
school,
what grade are you in?
10.
What do you want to
Yeah.
do what do you want to do after high school?
Um, I'm It's not very decided yet, but yeah, I'm definitely open to anything that contributes to like society. Um,
Awesome.
okay, so I guess we can. So I mean, there was like I can check again if anybody said. Okay, wait, actually, somebody submitted another question. Okay, so yeah, so what is your message to people who don't live in like swing states or states with divided legislatures, like Pennsylvania, who still want to get involved in those races, especially like at the local level?
That's a great question. If you don't live in a swing state and you are interested in helping swing states like Pennsylvania, we need a lot of help. It is a sad situation that that the race should even be this close. Our candidates on the top of the ballot couldn't be polls apart, and yet it's a close race. What you could do is find out how you can help. So you can reach out to local leaders, you can volunteer, you can donate, you can do phone calls. If you have family and friends in the area, come over for a weekend and do the door knocking literature drop. Um, there's so many ways you can help. Social media, sharing their platform, sharing their ActBlue account for donations, helping them, with fundraisers. There's so many things that can be done. Everyone has a gift. What is your gift? If your gift is social media, help them with promoting their social media. If you're a social person and would like to have a small gathering and raise funds and make that donation to their ActBlue account, you can do that. Reach out to the candidate and ask them for a mailer list, and you can write postcards and mail those postcards to them. You can reach out and get a phone call list and make phone calls on behalf of the candidate. So yeah, there's a lot you can do. And there are pockets here in Pennsylvania where we don't have enough. They are so deep red regions that the few Democrats that are there, they don't get the information. Like I had a lady reach out to me. She's someone who knows me through my small business. She's been a client of mine for several years. She reached out to me saying, "Hey, Anju, I'm seeing your lawn signs all over the place. What's going on?" Like, she was not politically savvy. She was not even registered to vote. She's been a citizen for years, but she had never registered to vote. But she knew this year was different. This year, a lot is on the line, and she was aware of that. And she's an educated person, a professional in one of the healthcare industries, not a physician or a nurse, but more in the pharmacy side. And so she reached out and she asked me, what can I do? Where do I begin? Like, this seems overwhelming for me. I don't know nothing about politics. I shared with her the site. This is where you go, get registered to vote. This is how you vote. These are your options. You can get a mail-in ballot. You can go to the polls and vote. I sent her a link to what the sample ballot looks like, what all is on the ballot. And then, she asked me a question about some of the candidates. I answered them to the best of my ability. And I told her, you can research the candidates, get the information, make an informed decision, but make sure you vote. So folks like that, you don't reach them if you don't go door knocking. If you can speak a different language, we have people like in this area, we have a lot of immigrants coming in who don't speak English. So it's difficult to communicate with them if you don't speak their language. So if you know somebody who speaks a different language, you can reach out to those folks. You can volunteer on the day of elections, this close to the elections, you can volunteer and be at the polls. That's one thing. Ever since I became a citizen, I'm at the polls every election. And in my area, often I'm the only Democrat there. For the entire time of 13 hours, I'm the only Democrat there. And there are certain other polling places I know there is not a single Democrat there because this is such a red district.
No, I think that's definitely important, especially like in our region, red states, red districts. You really have to look for voters who don't normally participate. I think there's a question in the chat that somebody sent.
I can't see any other questions on the chat.
Oh yeah. Oh, never mind. It was okay. Wait, I can. Okay, yeah. Okay, I can ask it. So, the person just DM'd it to me. So, he asked many Indian American candidates and many Indian American candidates candidates of color face racist rhetoric during their campaigns. Has this been a significant challenge of yours? And if so, how have you dealt with it?
So that's a great question. Um, I think living where I live for the last 20 years, that has been a challenge. And yes, I have been told several times, including in written language, in a formal work email laced with profanity, that I should go back where I came from. Those are actually part of the reasons why I even got involved in politics. So my response is usually based on the context, when, where, and with whom, and how that moment arises that I'm perceiving that the person is being racist. So for example, if it is someone I feel comfortable engaging in, a casual banter back and forth, so we are on different planes, if you will, and that person is perceiving me to be too, for lack of better word, let's say too critical of America. And then they tell me something like, hey, if you don't like America, why don't you go back where you came from? My response to them is, hey, I tried. I really did. But by law, as a single mother, I cannot leave the country with my children, and I'm not going anywhere without my children. So whether you like it or not, by your law, I'm stuck here. So that's literally the blunt, honest answer right there. And again, depending on the context, if someone tries to tell me I'm not American, I'm like, and how are you American? You're not Native American either, right? So I'm just as American as you are. Maybe a generation off, maybe your grandfather came here, or your father or whatever, and I'm the first generation. That's the only difference. We're offset by time, but we're both equally, we're both immigrants at some point. So how are you any different? So as I said, depending on the context, and with some people, you realize it's not even worth it. Some people, it's not worth going to their level and engaging with them. You just tell them, thank you for sharing your perspective. Have a nice day and just move on. Right? So you have to make that judgment on the spot if you want to spend any energy and time on those people. Some people, they're not worth that time and energy. You want to save it for for better things. What are you going to do if you win? I'm going to work as a state representative. So do you know the Pennsylvania legislature is one of the most expensive, like they are one of the best paid legislatures and yet one of the least functioning legislatures in the country. I'm hoping to change that too.
Yeah, that's no, I think that's definitely like a problem. Like a lack of productivity that comes with like a lack of being willing to collaborate and being bipartisan. I may as well ask a question now. So like how like as a Democrat in a red district, how can you win over or like try to like to try to contact voters who wouldn't normally vote for a Democrat or don't generally vote for Democrats and just want like somebody who's going to do things like and get stuff done and work across the aisle and things.
Great question. So again, most of the people in my district are Republicans, and I know them. Some of them are friends and neighbors and kids, friends, parents, and stuff. So when I do get a chance to talk to them, I start with a place of mutual respect, something we don't see a lot of nowadays. Nowadays, everybody seems to get categorized in a box, and if you're not in the same box as me, I'm going to judge you, kind of a thing. That culture has become common. And I think we need to change that. I think we need to recognize that somebody can be different from you. You don't have to agree with them, but you still give them respect, right? The minute you show that you respect them for who they are and for what they believe, so to speak, they are not immediately on the defensive. They don't close you out. And once that door is open for conversation, then you exchange ideas. And you never know, maybe you will learn something from them, maybe they will learn something from you. And they'll go back home and churn. You're not going to change people overnight. Very few people will change their mind by meeting you for 5 minutes. But what happens is they'll meet with you, they'll talk to you, they'll go back home and talk to their family members about the conversation they had with you. They'll think about it, right? And then maybe they'll follow you on social media. Maybe they'll watch a recorded interview like this if it gets posted on social media. And then they're like, you know what? Maybe I'll give this a chance. And they'll be willing to take the risk. Or they'll meet another friend who also spoke with the candidate and they have similar thinking. Hey, I didn't think I would vote for this person, but they said this and they said that. And I'm beginning to think, hey, you know what? They're not as right wing or as left wing as I thought they were. They're actually in the middle, which 90% of the population is actually in the middle. 90% of people are moderate people. Many people, what they want to see their elected leaders to do is to work across the aisle for the people. Most elected people are not doing that. They work across the aisle to protect their own position, their own power, to secure their positions. They're not working across the aisle for the benefit of the people. And that's part of what I'm running for. I've called out people, even within the Democratic Party, that, the way y'all are doing stuff, it's not okay. You do work with the opposition, but to secure your own position. How about you work with the opposition to make our life better? That's what you were elected for, right? So that's kind of the message I try to get through. And people, I've lived here for 20 years. People have known me long before I got involved in politics. People know me as a mother, as a teacher, as a small business owner. I treat everyone with respect the best I can. And someone who treats me with disrespect and I realize they are no longer worthy of my respect, I just put a safe distance between them and myself. Try my best not to say anything demeaning and hurtful to them, right? Calling people names has just become so commonplace that it's not okay. Calling people names is a form of bullying. And if somebody calls me names, they are the bully. But if I respond similarly, then I'm just like them. Then I don't have a leg to stand on saying that they are bullies because I'm doing the same thing, right? So always start with the place of give them baseline respect, listen to them. You listen to them, they will listen to you.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely very important, especially with like there being a lot of voters who are like still in the middle and willing to listen to both sides. Um, okay, so someone DM'd me a question again. Uh, he asked, "What are your major legislative goals for if you would be elected, or just like in terms of your general advocacy?"
Right. Let me bring out my fly and share it with you so you know that I am not just talking the talk, I am willing to walk the walk. Uh, So this is one side of my flyer, not sure if you can see it, but these are the issues I'm talking about. Actually, no, this one is on the other side here. Pro-choice, right? Having access to safe and legal abortion is health care. Can you see it or is it flipped right to left?
Oh yeah, no, it's on the right side. It's like I
Okay.
can see it.
Decrease gun violence. Uh, um, 3D printers were not a thing, in the past, but now 3D printing has become one of the most common sources of printing or making gun parts and then assembling gun, kind of like the IKEA of guns. There are no laws regulating that. So that's become an increasing problem. And gun violence, including suicide by gun, has become prevalent. So we need to have rules and regulations to decrease that. Giving our LGBTQA members rights. A lot of the right-wing people are, pushing back against gender-affirming care, and I don't think that is acceptable. Environmental protection. As I said, my opponent did a lot of hard work to get his rating in the environmental agencies improved because he was not voting for a lot of environmentally friendly bills. Quality education, living wages. If anybody who works 40 hours a week, full-time job, they should be able to afford minimum basic living, be able to pay their rent, buy their food, buy their clothes. That's not too much to ask for. Any ordinary full-time job should be able to have, affordable limit. And then term limits. Part of the problem with these people who think they can go around telling other people whether they can or cannot run for office, and then they use, oh, I have, 40 years experience in politics. I understand the importance and the value of having institutional knowledge, but at the same time, a lot has changed over the last 30, 40 years. A lot has changed over the last 10 years. We've had the Me Too movement. We've seen the Black Lives Matter movement. We've seen a lot of change, a lot of things over the last few years have come to surface. And so politics needs to change in the wake of all of these movements, taking into consideration what our lived experiences are and addressing them. And politics is no longer going to work the way it did 40 years ago. And so term limits, even if you join the army, after 20 years, you are entitled to retire. I think after serving in politics for 20 years, people should be asked to move on. Maybe change, move from House to Senate or from Senate to Congress, move up the ladder or move sideways or do something. People get in, like in Congress, almost every single Congressperson lands up becoming a millionaire, and then they think they live there, they own the Congress, and then they're working for themselves and their fellow Congresspeople and no longer for the public. That's not okay. That needs to change.
There's another
Great
question in
question.
the chat.
I see Rehan's question in the chat. We'll see, Rehan. I take it, one day at a time, one thing at a time. So we'll see. This time I ran, so to speak, without a lot of support, almost against the advice of the leadership in the party, which was a real challenge. I'm hoping that if I do consider running again, it will be with more support of the party. I've been asked by some Republicans that I should run on the Republican ticket. And my honest answer to them was, you know what? Perhaps there was a time I would have considered that. This is not the time to consider that. Right? So theoretically, I would not have a problem considering myself a conservative in certain topics, in certain areas, but not here, not now, not today, not this election, no. And I'll, for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this election definitely is like different. So does anybody else have any other final questions? Uh, and if not, then I guess it's like close enough to 7. We can call it.
And here's the thing, moving forward, how are we going to continue working together, win or lose? What are you guys working on? I see we have a diversity director here. What are you doing to promote diversity and equity in our communities? What work can we continue to do irrespective of the outcome of the elections? Because the work will need to be done. Win or lose, the work needs to be done. So that
Yeah,
the ball in your court now.
I'm gonna like publish that specific question and then send it to everybody. Okay, wait. So oh, okay.
Yeesh, I was trying to get my own question out.
Awesome. No, that's a great question. And I think I kind of sort of alluded to that. In my limited experience in running for this position, I have learned that certain political leaders do work across the aisle behind closed doors to secure each other's position and power. I do not call that bipartisan. For me, bipartisan means working across the aisle for the people. And we don't see enough of that. I think we need to have more leaders who work in a bipartisan manner for the people. So I definitely intend to be that candidate who will work across the aisle, who will work with anyone as long as it is for the people and benefiting the people. Of course, everyone's perspective on benefiting the people is going to be different. But yes, I do intend to be a moderate, a left-leaning moderate, bipartisan. And that was actually one of the quote unquote conditions put on me. A certain group of people, Democrats in our district, reached out to me who know my opponent, have a good relationship and respect for my opponent. They are very happy to see a Democrat on the ticket, but they didn't know me. And so they wanted to get to know me and they wanted to give me the benefit of doubt, right? So we had a gathering. We got to talk to each other and talk about different topics, get to know each other. And at the end of the night, they had one question, one request from me. They said, we enjoyed meeting you. We like you. We like a lot of the stuff you said. We definitely support you. We are very happy to see a Democrat on the ticket. Our only request to you is that if and when you do win, please, will you work in a bipartisan manner across the aisle? And I'm like, of course, that's a no-brainer. 90% of the population is moderate. And so unless we have more moderate candidates in the House and in the Senate, we're not going to get a lot of work done. Being too hard right-wing or too hard left-wing is not going to work. 90% of the people are in the middle. So we need leaders who are in the middle. So I hope that answers your question. The PA House of Representatives. So we currently have a 1-seat majority in the House. And we don't have a majority in the Senate. And what that has led to is a lot of bills were passed by the House, by the Democrats in the House, but they are stuck in the Senate. They're not getting passed by the Senate. So that's a problem. So we're hoping that we can maintain our majority and hopefully increase the majority by 1 seat, because what the 1-seat majority does, that's what what they call the razor-thin majority, is that then individual candidates, individual representatives, say there's a bill being passed, and the bill is going to be right along the middle. It's going to get 50-50 support. Then that one candidate who either says, let's say it's a Democratic bill, right? So one Democratic representative saying no to the bill can hold the bill back, or one Republican candidate representative saying voting yes on the bill will make the bill pass. So those individual representatives then get a lot of power, which is what then they use to play games, for lack of a better word. But if we have more than one seat majority, it makes life a little bit easier, if you will, to pass these common sense bills that are long overdue, right? So we are not, the choice of words I use is, we're not dependent on the crumbs being thrown to us across the aisle. We're able to stand on our own 2 feet and pass these bills. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And on that topic of common sense, like this would definitely be the final question because yeah, it's 6:55. But so like on that topic, how do you think Democrats, both in campaigning and when they're trying to pass bills, can get past like the like lies and deception, both of like interest groups and super PACs, and also like the like some candidates themselves? How do you think they can get past that to get things done?
I think a lot of it is going to depend on the candidate themselves. I think candidates with good integrity will not fall for the lies, will not fall for the misinformation. I think we need to keep standing up and calling out the lies and the misinformation in a respectful manner, right? Just because someone's put something out there, give them the benefit of the doubt that they didn't have all the facts. Put the facts in front of them, right? Say, hey, you said this, but look at this, this, and this. Based on these facts, cite your sources and tell them, do you still believe what you just said? Because these facts from these, credible sources are not aligned with what you said. So give them an opportunity to change their word. And if they still don't, then call them out on it. Then, hey, so-and-so saying this, however, these sources tell us that this is not right. And maybe in the process, you will learn that they said what they said based on their sources of information, right? I teach a course known as Scientific Mind. I think all politicians should take that course, right? Look at your scientific data. And 2 people can look at the same data and make 2 very different conclusions, come to different inferences. So the whole point is go back to the data. Look at the data, look at the limitations of the data, look at the limitations of the study. The design of the study itself can sometimes be, I wouldn't necessarily say flawed, but can have its own limitations and shortcomings or weaknesses. Be mindful of those shortcomings or weaknesses. And then put it out there like you would any scientific inference. Y'all know what I'm talking about, scientific method, right?
Yeah,
So I think all politicians should take a scientific methods course.
yeah. So I think that's probably the last question because it's getting very close to 7. But thank you to everybody who came. And yeah, we'll definitely. Oh yeah, and also in the chat just now, I just sent the Mobilize link for PA Dems. And because there's only a few more days, but there's still work to do.
There's a
And
lot
people
of
to call.
yeah.
So yeah, also try to work at the polls if you can. I know I'm doing that, so on election day. So yeah, thank you
Anybody
everybody.
wants to come to Pennsylvania, volunteer at the polls for us here, please, you're more than welcome. All right,
Okay,
thank
thank
you
you.
so much. And if you're sharing this on social media or whatever, feel free to share the link with me and I will share it on my social media as well.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you for the good work. Thank you for everything you guys are doing. Keep in touch and I'm happy to continue working with you irrespective of the outcome of the election. All right.
Yeah.
All right, take care.